Hello and welcome. I'm Lisa Bragg and welcome to Bragging Rights. This is a new series that I'm starting and we're going to talk about professional brand with awesome people who have amazing professional brands, who want to share their value with the world, who want to help you be seen and be heard, because it really is about all of us showing and sharing our value and our wisdom. And I have my first guest is a tremendous person. So, and she has such a long bio. I could spend the whole day. There's so many great talking points. So Zahra Alharazi, and she is a best-selling author. Her book is just out, and we will definitely touch on that. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, and I've seen her on many stages. So she really knows how to get her brand out there and use it for so many good things in the world too, beyond her profession, but also sharing her value with so many different projects that are close to her heart. So welcome, long intro, right?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very honored to be your first guest. This is really exciting. And excuse the log cabin behind me. We came to our ranch in Montana in February to kind of figure out this COVID thing, and now 7 months later, we're still here. So
best place to do it, though, if you have to. Yeah. We all have to. So good. And I'm actually at the studio today. We're not open, but we are having a day here. So, and this, if you're wondering what this says behind me, it says, those who tell stories rule the world, right?
That's awesome. I love that.
So we'd love you, the audience, to join in on our conversation. So if you have any thoughts, any questions, any comments, what you're doing, please feel free to put them in the comments in the chat, and we'll include you in the conversation. We even want to know, where in the world are you? I'm in Toronto and Zahra's in Montana. So wherever you are, if you want to say hi and put it in the chat, that'd be great too. We'd love to send a shout out to you. And if you're watching the replay, we'd love to still comment and see what you're thinking. And we'll come back and look at your comments and questions later on. And maybe it's something I can address in another show in my series. So Zahra has an amazing origin story. And so many of us, we don't use our origin stories as part of our professional brand, but it really is one of your foundational things that you talk about. So first of all, tell us about it. What's your origin story?
Oh, wow. That is such a loaded question. I'll be here all day. It's interesting. It's just because my background is so unique compared to everybody else who lives in the world that I live in, that I kind of use it. I actually did a podcast yesterday, and the question was, why do you do the speaking engagements? And what was interesting about that for me is because a lot of times I get a comment from someone that says, if you can do it, so can I. And I absolutely love that comment, because that's true. We can all do it. And, all of us have challenges and different things that kind of pop up in our life, and what we do with that and where we take it and how much stronger it makes us is what makes us successful. So my origin story is, I was born in Uganda, left when I was 2. Idi Amin invited all the brown people to leave the country without any of their belongings or their property or their money, and we landed in Yemen, refugees in a country that was actually my grandfather's home, and didn't know anything about the culture there. And so it was kind of a restart for us to just understand how this very closed society works. And I grew up in Yemen. I got married when I was 17, had 3 kids by the age of 23. And during the war in Yemen, we decided that, this is not where we would want to raise our kids. And there's better things in Medicare and education that we need to offer them. And so we immigrated to Canada. When I came to Canada, I was 26 years old. I had 3 children. I didn't have any education other than really my high school degree and a few courses that I had taken in a brief stint in the US after I got married, and didn't know anybody in this country and had to start from zero. And I went back to university and studied graphic design, but strangely, I went to art school, and in my country, art history books aren't allowed because there's nudity in the books and, all the things that are not allowed in a closed society. And so really I had no knowledge of what graphic design was until I got here and found out that I actually loved it. And I went back to school. I started working, and within 3 years of graduation, I started my first company, Foundry. And we did amazing work. We were on the W100 list, most profitable companies in Canada, started by women, and we were on that list twice. And I won Canadian Female Entrepreneur of the Year, and it was a really, really great journey. And it really wasn't hard. This is an amazing country to start anything.
So. I love how you listed off all those things, and you're proud of it too. I find some people are hesitant though to tell some of their own stories. Were you ever worried to tell your honest truth and say these are the things and put it out there where sometimes it's a bit messy? Were you ever reserved, or you've held off on stories to tell when it maybe you're in a bit better of a light, or are you just always, here's where I am and here's where I came from?
Sorry, we have so much smoke from the California wildfires that my throat has just been crazy.
Yeah, take a break. Yeah.
Lately. No, I'm good. Initially, yes, because I was raised in a culture where you do not you don't air your dirty laundry, as it's called, in public, right? Nobody should know what's going on in your home. And so initially I just didn't even think about it because that's not something we did. And then one of my employees put my name in for the Canadian Woman Entrepreneur of the Year award. And I didn't think much of it when she did it. She did the application, and one of my clients put my name in for the top 40 under 40. And again, I didn't think anything of it. It was like, thank you so much for even thinking about wanting to do this. And what came out of that is Women of Influence invited me to speak at a cocktail series that they had. And that was my first speaking engagement. And I was like, why do you want me to speak? Like, what do you want me to talk about? And they're like, just tell your story. And so, and I did. And I didn't tell all of it. I told pieces of it, but enough. It's unique and different enough that people responded really well, and these glimmers started to appear to me. Is like this is it's good for business because awards and recognition help me build my company, help me bring clients to the door. I remember Top 40 Under 40 brought me one of my biggest clients ever. And so, so that was really great. And then the other thing is, you feel good when you inspire someone. And I remember doing this speaker series for TD Bank, and they had this gala that they do across the country. And it's for people either who have mental health issues or physical health issues. And it's a gala celebrating all of their employees. And after my speech, this woman came over to me and she said, and she was quite emotional. And she said, I was kind of pissed off that I was invited to this because I didn't know why I was here. And she said, but, I realized now that there was a reason. And it was so that I could listen to you. And, obviously she was going through some of the same challenges in her life. And she gave me this little medallion that she had carried with her forever. And she said, I'd like you to have this now. And, I still carry it. I remember that because that's why it's important.
And that's exactly it. And our own stories, we don't think that they're that valuable to the world because we're living them. We're in that, that silly first draft. We're in that production. It's all going on in our heads. And so we don't think it's that amazing to other people. But when you tell your story, Martin even says here, wow, what an awesome story and congratulations. But it's when you can touch those lives and share your wisdom, share your knowledge with other people. And you could be that spark that one day that person needs to continue the business or go for that raise or, whatever it is. And you were that voice that day.
Thank you. I think we all inspire each other. Like certainly COVID has been difficult for me because even when I do speeches, I get so much energy from the people in the room, and I tell a lot of jokes, and and it's hard to tell a joke when you're talking to your computer screen and you don't have people around you. But I do. I get inspired by people and their stories, and I get the reason I continue to do it is the people that come talk to me afterwards. And so those things are some of my favorite moments. arrogance. And I think we all inspire each other, and we continue to do so for the rest of our lives. We're never done growing. We're never done learning. We're never done being a better version of ourselves. And you just need to keep pushing forward to continue to do that, knowing that you're not done. Because if you think you're done, you're on the other side of arrogance, and that's not good either.
And that's so many points in that too, because you're on the other side of arrogance, and that's where you're sitting back waiting for things to happen instead of being out there and active and sharing your value with the world, for sure. So, I think one point too, and what you just said, that we're constantly kind of growing, and that's where, do you have imposter syndrome ever?
All the time. It's interesting, and women tend to do that more than men, to be honest. It's part of our makeup. But all the time, because like I said right in the beginning, it wasn't hard for me to do what I did. I had so much help along the way. I would email people, and I was this nobody immigrant from nowhere, right? And I'd email people and I'd say, I want to learn how to do this. I don't know how to do this. Because when I came, I honestly had so many gaps in my knowledge. Even in my knowledge of popular culture, people would talk about movies and shows and songs, and I'd be like, and so, but people reach out. If you reach out, if you're honest and you're open and you're willing to learn and you're humble and you're interested in them too, because if you want value from other people, you also have to have a value proposition that you're giving back to them. And people reached out and they taught me things that I didn't know. And so it was a journey. It was fun. I don't ever look at anything as this was a hardship and, I deserve, that victim syndrome. No. But yeah, you feel like, well, that was pretty easy. Or, the war in Yemen, all my friends and family were there. They went through the same thing. So why am I special? Why do I get to tell this story? So there's a lot of that. But I just think that you have to believe in yourself and your value. And as long as you believe that, and you have the mindset that I have to add value, you're golden. You will continue to grow and do well and succeed and draw people to you. But as soon as you're looking to people to give you something is where you'll fail.
That's great advice right there, for sure. And Jennifer's saying we do all inspire each other. It's more difficult in isolation, so it's important to share, especially now. And then Lena says she appreciates you, Zahra, for sharing the fact that for many of us, speaking up and speaking out is about transcending how we've been socialized by our culture to not speak up, to not draw attention to yourself. And I think, there's so many cultures it's that way, but it's so important for all of us, especially as women, to speak up and to share our stories and to, help each other right now, mentor up, mentor down, sponsor, and then also for the next generation that we don't continue to suffer from what I call the good girl syndrome, head down, somebody's going to notice us eventually. No.
When I wrote my book, it took 6 years from the time I signed a contract with HarperCollins to the time I actually put my book out. And it was an excruciating 6 years because, I'd write something down and then I'd take it out again. And I'd be like, no, I can't say that, because I'm going to affect this or, and I really had to think really hard about, because how people perceive you in my culture, the good girl syndrome is huge, because if you do something wrong, you've now stained the honor of your family, right? So it's a bigger deal than just me. And so I had to think so carefully about, can I say this? Can I say this? Should I say this? But then I also thought about all the girls from Yemen that send me emails and say, we wish we could do what you did. I love that you're doing this. I was one of the first women to, not wear my hijab when, I was in public. And it's not because there's anything wrong with it. I just chose not to. And I have lots of friends that chose to, and I admire them for that. It's all about personal choice. But the problem with that is, a lot of us feel like we can't express that personal choice. For the longest time, I wouldn't wear anything with like a sleeveless top on social media because I was afraid of people's perception. And then I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to do what I want to do.
And you're empowered, and you're probably empowering other people. So I just want to mention that your book is What It Takes, and I have some links to and HarperCollins. If you want to go to their website, you can find it there. And of course, it's available in all bookstores and everywhere that you could buy a book.
And
now.
Amazon globally.
And Amazon, awesome. You know, I love that you also recognize, you know, you say best-selling author, you say award-winning, you say first. Like, those are powerful things to include, where you're so many of us, we shy away from owning those things. What gave you that to say, I need to say it? It's the truth, so you need to tell it. But what gave you that power to finally own it?
Who else is going to tell your story if you don't? Right? You can sit back and lose opportunities and miss work, or you can tell the truth and be honest and be proud of yourself. And there's nothing wrong in being proud of yourself. You know, I'm not great at self-promotion. Like, you know, and I'm pretty sure that HarperCollins don't love that I don't really promote the book as much as I should. I'm not great at it. But if I get an opportunity like this and you reached out, and I will do it. You know, but I'm not going to sit there and email people and say, hey, can I be on your show? So it really depends on your comfort zone. Like, how comfortable are you going to be doing what I'm doing right now with you? Or how comfortable are you going to be reaching out? Or, you know, so I don't work hard to be an influencer, but if I get the opportunity, I take it and I capitalize on it. And it's brought me work, it's brought me clients, it's brought me friends, you know, it's brought me travel opportunities. I joined EO, and through that, I got on the global board. I got to go to a board meeting around the world. Like twice a year, we had a board meeting in a different country in the world. I got to speak and do a speaking tour of 7 cities across Australia, New Zealand, and Germany. Spoke to 2,000 entrepreneurs at a conference in Istanbul. They were from 58 countries around the world, right? Those opportunities do not just land in your lap. None of us are that special. You know, you have to go after what you want to do, but you have to decide what you want to do and go after it. I was actually watching this is really funny because I was watching a hair tutorial because I watched a show and I loved the girl's hair and it was all these curls. And I'm like, I want to learn how to do this. And I was amazed. I went on YouTube and I was watching these tutorials, and there's these women that have these hair tutorials that have like 7 million views. And I'm like, oh my God, right? You know, but put yourself out there, go after what you want, decide what life it is that you want to lead, what outcomes you want for your life, and then you have to go after them.
I love that. I love that you've already, you know, it's that knowing where you want to go, and you don't have to be a massive influencer to 7 million people. It's really that value to that person that gave you the medallion that you met, or even that one person in front of you. And we were talking in an earlier chat that you really always try to focus on that one person in front of you and make sure that you have that connection, because it's that one person, that one audience, that one, you know, it's Marie in our audience right now, or Catherine, that we're speaking to, that one person. And then that's what gets you so many more opportunities. And not when you're thinking about a billion.
1000%. And you know, it's just it's focusing. I hate those people when you go to parties and they're looking over your shoulder as to who's the important person in the room that they need to talk to. Like, no, that's not how you want to be perceived. That's not how you want to conduct your life. You know, everybody's important, everybody adds value, and you won't believe, you know, from the most unassuming people that I've talked to, the connections that I've built, the opportunities that have come up. And I love the little journeys. Like, for me, it's not the big stage that I love. It's the conversations that I have afterwards. And you know, those little moments are so incredibly special and thoughtful. And that's really what I live for. So I have an idea of what the end goal is that I want. But if I'm not having the journey along the way that I need, then it's really not worth it.
Yeah. Thanks, Joanne. Joanne's saying, she says, great advice on knowing where you want to go. So that's really good. And you have a new thing that you're so busy, you're doing so many new things, but you're a co-founder in a new business called Skillet. Do you want to just take a minute to tell us a little bit about that? Because that's another way that we can, you know, share our wisdom with the world. So tell us a little bit about Skillet. There we go.
Yeah. So when I was running my marketing agency, my ad agency, I after a period of time, I felt really unfulfilled. I felt like I wasn't doing I wasn't contributing anything to the world. I wasn't building something that changes a life, and all we did was sell other people's stuff. Right? That's what marketing does, and I struggled with that. I actually did a TED talk on that about how I felt, and so I kind of sold my company, and I spent a lot of time soul searching, trying to figure out what is it that I want to do. And I realized that what I want to do is change lives. But how do I do that I don't want to build anything that is a handout or a nonprofit. I want to build a hand up. And so Sarah Katiel, my business partner, and I started this company. We just launched, so we're like really early. It's called Skillet, and what it is it's skills. It's a marketplace for skills. So any skill, life skill that you want to learn, whether you want to learn how to build a concrete countertop, or hack, or do your taxes, or save money, or cheat at poker, or whatever life skill you want to learn, we have people that are going to teach it to you, and that's what's exciting for me. It's all about different skills, and it was hard skills as much as soft skills, because skills like empathy, teammanship, leadership, all of those things you don't learn from a book. You learn it from doing. And so all of our skills are live in-person experiences. And then COVID happened just as we were launching, and we're like, oh shoot, live in-person experiences are not going to work right now. And so, but the theory is still the same. Like, LinkedIn is only doing 2-minute long videos because that's the max attention span of people. The dropout rate of online learning is still 98%, even with COVID. And so what we did was we built an interactive classroom. So you can teach through our app. And so that's why it took us a bit longer to launch. But the part of the company that I absolutely love is for every 10 skills that you sell on our website, you have to donate one. And we're collecting a pool of young people that don't have access typically, and we're giving them these skills. And, I don't think a lot of us realize that a lot of these young people with challenges, they just need an opportunity. They just need somebody to care, somebody to take some time, somebody to show interest. And even if they're learning how to make pierogies from a Polish grandmother, they're still learning something. They're learning about value, about empathy, about all these different things. So eventually, once we're up and running and we're a successful company, I'm just going to take that Skillet Forward piece and run that, because that's all I want to do. So.
Yeah, I love that too, because all of us can take advantage. I love that you're also giving back, and that's so in line with so many. It's almost that you give, get. That's what we do in the world for sure. And maybe we don't get right away. It's long term because you're building and you're doing some great things. But I love that, and I think it's that if we're learning from that grandmother who makes pierogies, that's another conversation piece that makes us all more interesting too. So
100%. And what's interesting about the give back thing is a lot of times we look at people with different challenges than us as different. Like if you're not if your skin color is not different, then you don't truly understand what that person is going through. Or if you're not physically disabled, you don't truly understand what that person is going through. And I was the Canadian ambassador for UNICEF for a number of years. And during one of my trips that I did with them, we went to Jordan and visited the Syrian refugee camps and talked to a lot of families. And what's interesting to me is we're all 100% exactly the same. It doesn't matter, if you're living in a refugee camp, you still have the same dreams, the same desires, the same needs, the same wants, the same fears. We're all the same. And if we don't help each other, we're not going to get anywhere. So for me, it's a big part of who I am, honestly. It makes me feel good. And
if we can all rise, the better for all of society, all of humanity. So it's that rising tide boats type of thing. So anything you can do, I think people are going to say, wow, how do you even get in front of the UN to get an ambassadorship? So it's all the steps that you do so that they can see you out there.
They called me
because they knew about you, because you weren't hiding. Right?
Yeah.
Because they knew about you. So that's amazing. Marie has a comment. She says, She says, we're all missing in-person opportunities to be authentic. Online authenticity is more difficult. Any pointers?
It is. Yeah, honestly, it is. But I think the only way to do it is share a story. You're not going to. How different is this conversation than if we were sitting on a stage in front of 2,000 people having a fireside chat? It is more difficult. Like when I give a speech, it's really, really hard, right? Because I'm just talking to myself and I don't like that. But this is a conversation. So I think you just have to, like, I've had to work to just relax myself and, try and think about it differently. This is the new reality and this is how things are. And, I have a daughter that works in Paris and a daughter that works in London, and I haven't seen them since January. Right. And it's really hard, but this is how I interact with my kids, and I don't get to hold them, but I get to have these real live moments with them. And so it is hard. I 100% agree with you. I taught I guest lectured a class at OCAD yesterday morning, and yeah, it was different, right? But you just make the best of it, and we tell personal stories. Those are the best thing ever. Every time I have had a friend that has sent me a speech and asked me to help with it, I've just started peppering it with personal stories because they make all the difference.
You know what, too? One, you don't have to have a million stories. So you have, because I have seen you several times, and I know you have signature stories. So your stump stories, signature stories, and then you add a little color to them or add a little flair or add something. So I think people get so upset or so worried that they have to have this box full of stories that they'll read out every time. Tell me about that.
I usually research. Let's just say I'm giving a speech. I research the organization. I research the audience, who's going to be there, what's the makeup. I try to bring things that are personal to them and stories and stuff. I love data. I adore data. Like, just give me data points. I'll spout out a million different things. I research data, and so I talk about things that are important to them. It doesn't all have to be about me, like, not, so find out what's important to other people and what they talk about. I'll give you an example. I gave this speech in Toronto for the MS Society for their gala. So I'd done a small one. I think my first one was in Winnipeg, and it went so well and they raised so much money that they booked me to do all the MS galas across the country. And so I was doing the one in Toronto, and there was 700 plus people in the audience. And by chance, I wore a red suit that day. I'm trying to introduce color into my life, and and so I wore a red suit that day. And as soon as I got up on stage, I realized that the main sponsors were Scotiabank, the Globe and Mail, MS Society, and all of that. And all of them, their signature color is red. And then I heard, so RBC was introducing me, but I found out that they couldn't say RBC because you can't have two banks being sponsors of the same event. It's the law. And so they didn't have RBC logos and stuff. And so I got up on stage and I said, I'm wearing red today. I was lying in honor of the MS Society and the Globe and Mail and Scotia, and Lisa, who was the RBC executive that introduced me. I'm like, Lisa, you're going to have to trust that I'm wearing something blue. And everybody laughed, and it broke the ice. It relaxed me, and then we just moved on. So find stories that you can tell and moments that you can create. It just, like I said, it doesn't have to be about you and what you have.
And it's really about your audience. You just, even the audience, meaning the sponsors. So you paid, you paid them attention, but it's the audience in front of you doing the research in advance. And that audience could be that one person or 700 people at
oh my gosh.
conference.
If I pull out somebody's tagline in a speech or something like that, do you know how much they appreciate that? Because they're like, oh, our tagline, right? Or, I'm a big Facebook fan, but my Facebook is closed because I tend to spout my mouth about Trump a lot on, so it's kind of a closed, but on my Facebook, I watch people. And so when I go to parties, I'm like, it was your wife's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday. Or, like, you got a new dog. How great is that? What did you call her? People love that. Pay attention to people and what they're doing, and ask questions. And, it's like I said, I tend to not talk about myself as much as I should.
I'm making you talk about
to sell
yourself.
a book.
But that's the thing, is that you're interested in other people and you are showing your value through that. And I think that's what really connects you to people, and that you care about the person in front of you, but you've also done your research for your audience, and you're building it one by one by one, an authentic audience. I know we're running out of time, but if you could just give me, Julia has written, any advice for a new grad breaking out into the workforce during these times? Big question. I don't know if you have any advice for her.
First of all, I am really sorry that you're graduating in 2020. This is a tough year for sure. It's a really tough question to answer, because I remember when I went to university, like, all you needed was enough money to pay your bill, like, to pay to go to university. And then I saw when my kids were applying to universities, they needed to be on the basketball team, and they needed to be captain of the debate club, and they needed to volunteer, and they needed to have a job and some experience. And my daughter, who was the second, I forget the word now, but the second after valedictorian in her school, and was involved in everything, didn't get into international business in UBC. Right. So it's so much harder now. And I don't mean to discourage you by saying that, Julia, but just keep working on how, researching the company that you're going to talk to interview, finding out more about the people. Yeah, I used to have a Google alert on all my clients, on the client themselves, on their business, so that, I used to find out when it was their birthday, because they always got a birthday cake to their office, right? It's just, engage with people, find out more about them, because that really does make a difference. And good luck with your search.
Yeah, and I think my piece of advice would be to use LinkedIn, the platform we're on, and don't forget to follow up. People do, when you reach out, they might be very busy, but they will follow up. So, like, Zahra, you're extremely busy with building a new company and doing everything, and I reached out, so people do want to communicate, and they do want to connect. So I think that's one of the big things. So one last thing, though, you once said, in a world full of roses, dare to be a daisy. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Everybody tries to put their best foot forward, right? Like, here's perfect me. And you don't need to do that. It's okay to be different. So when I was young, I the reason I don't have much of an accent is because I got the opportunity to go to the international school in Yemen. And that was because of my mom. She pulled a bunch of strings, and I was the only scholarship a poor student in a school of ambassadors and children of ambassadors and expats. And, I tried to mold myself to be them. And then my dad didn't like my new Western behavior, and he pulled me out of that and put me in an all-girls Arabic school. And I was so much of an outsider. I was so different than everybody else, and I just couldn't fit in. And so then I tried to change myself to be like them. And I just decided that I didn't want to be like them. There was something unique about who I was, and it might not be perfect, and it might not, sell as many books as I wanted to, but it is me. And as soon as I realized that I have value to bring to the table, and my voice can add to the conversation, is when I started to become more comfortable in my own skin, more comfortable telling my stories, more comfortable being myself. And that really made the difference, all the difference. So even if you're a daisy, be proud of it, and be yourself.
That is great advice to end on. Thank you so much for all of that. And thank you, everyone who attended. And Marie says thank you. Julia says thank you. Joanne says thank you. So many people enjoyed the conversation today. So thank you for attending. I'm just going to put up the banners again, because we want to tell, your book. It's a hard time to have a book out there, but it's what it takes. It's available via HarperCollins, so you can go there, and I'm sure it's on Amazon Chapters, whichever is your country of choice and whichever one you want to go to. And her new company is Skillet, so you can go check it out and learn how to make
myskillet.com.
Thank you, myskillet.com.
The company is Skillet, but skillet.com was taken.
And I'll put that in the show notes for afterwards. So thank you all for watching. Also, I'm starting up a newsletter. So if you'd like to join my newsletter, it's ask@lisabragg.com. And I'm going to have more tips on how you can develop and share your own professional, personal brand and share your value and be seen and be heard. So thank you so much, Zahra, for joining us today. And
thank you
again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks.